I'm Josh from Source Point Press, and this is Casey.
And make sure you go to Bleeding Cool for all the latest and greatest in comic book news and media.
All right, this is Marco Lopez with Bleeding Cool News, and today I'm talking with Josh Werner of Source Point Press. All right, Josh, the first thing I want to ask you is one, tell the audience what you do for Source Point Press.
Sure. So I was the co-founder actually of Source Point Press in 2012. But luckily, it's gone on to be much bigger than me, and now like actual people who know how to run businesses run the business, and I just work there. So I'm the art director. I primarily deal with all the creators and handle their files, work with the printer, work with marketing, social media, and all the cool, fun stuff.
Cool. So one of the things I like to ask creators, people that run publishing companies, stuff like that, is what made you fall in love with comic books?
So let's see. My first one was when I was a kid, and it was like the typical story of being at a corner store when they had the spinner rack, and I got this awesome Silver Surfer comic, and from there I just fell in love with the medium because I was a big reader as a kid, and I was always drawing. So like seeing this kind of combination of this new way of storytelling that seemed almost limitless in my mind. As a kid, I started making my own comics, stapling them together, trying to sell them to classmates at school when I was like 10 years old. And it went on to, I went to art school, I got a degree, and I kept telling myself, comics is probably not the best way to go, like stay away from that, like try to focus on your other aspects of freelance graphic design and illustration, and it wasn't before long, I couldn't help it. I was making comics, and now I'm all in, and it's been quite a ride already.
Tell us how is it that the history, basically, a history of how Source Point Press started, why you decided to start Source Point Press, and give us an idea of the trials and tribulations, how you through everything of getting to today.
Sure. So in 2012, I met Trico Lutkins, who is a writer. He's kind of the one who wrote me back into comics. He wanted to work on a book together. And one of the things I was talking about was, what do you want to do about publishing? Are you going to pitch it to somewhere? What are you thinking down the line? And he had very little ideas. He wasn't quite sure where he wanted to go. And I thought, you know what? We could do this ourselves. We could totally just publish it ourselves. I was like, but if we do, I don't want it to be I don't want it to feel like it's self-published. I want to actually do it right, and I want to publish other people's stuff. I want to create a full lineup. So in 2013, the following year, we had 8 titles already from a variety of people. And we were working with all sorts of artists and writers, and it was absolutely horrifying. It was super scary because it was expensive, and we were doing all these cons and trying to make our money back, and we kind of just kept grinding away. And conventions were our main source of sales, so we kept doing more and more cons, and more people started recognizing the logo that I developed and some of the social media branding that I'd done, and we started getting pitched bigger and bigger stuff. Eventually, we had multiple owners and an entire board, and Travis McIntyre came in as our CEO and editor-in-chief, and that's when we took it to the next level. Much larger print runs, much bigger titles, working with bigger names, working with licenses, with bands and filmmakers. And now we are moved on to movies. We wrapped production on our first film based on one of our titles, and we just secured funding for our second one. And it's just it keeps amping up and getting bigger and bigger. And a lot of it, we've created an incredible distribution network by ourselves. Just a slew of stores across the country that are excited to work with us directly. It's been a very, very hard road, but I can definitely say it was a team of people that made it happen. It was no one person. It was definitely a lot of our creators are really passionate about the brand itself and being part of that. So they're all in it with us, kind of thing. So it's awesome. It's just it's an ongoing struggle, but it's getting better and better every day.
One of the things I wanted to talk about is I noticed here at your booth at Megacon is that you guys not only do comic books, but you guys also do novels. Tell us how you got into doing that as well, and where is that what you see the company eventually becoming, something that covers not only comic books, graphic novels, and prose work as well?
Yes, absolutely. So right now our comics and graphic novels division is much larger than our prose division, but from the very beginning, it was really important to me that we do books because I love the idea of getting comic readers to read books as well. So like we really focused on awesome writers who also write comics, you know, so that if you like their comics, it can kind of rope you in to try out like a novel. And one of the very first writers we published at Source Point was David J. Fielding, who is actually the actor who plays Zordon in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the original series. Yeah, so he is actually a phenomenal writer. Yeah, and we were doing a call for entries for an anthology, and he sent his in. And we were like, oh, that's so strange. That's the same name as the guy who played Zordon, and it was actually him, and he's phenomenal. And we're actually going to be publishing a novel of his soon, and we've gone on to work with some creators who really want to do both. They love prose, they want to do both, and we're getting comic fans to read more books, which is really cool. So in that regard, we actually we're starting to really put a lot more love into the prose division and build that up now. David C. Hayes has been behind a lot of that. He's a really prolific author. I think like 28 novels or something under his belt, plus over 100 film credits on IMDb. The dude's just a legend. He's amazing. And Casey Pierce, who is our guest writer here with us, she is a writer who writes our comic series Nora, and we're debuting at this show. We have a special hardcover edition of her prose book that we really fancied up. It's pretty amazing. It's like a slipcase hardcover edition, limited to 500 copies. It features illustrations from a lot of badass comic book artists as well. And it's for horror fans. It's not for the faint of heart. It's very intense. And you'd be surprised how many comic book readers who don't normally read books see this and go, I have to have it. Like it's a beautiful collector's item. And Casey's here with me too. She can speak to that regard. Casey, you promote the idea of both comics and prose existing in the same world.
Yes. You know, the literary crossover, it's a beautiful thing, you know. Especially when you're dealing with comics, you're dealing with the art of the short story. So that does translate very well to prose books. They can play off of each other. I mean, this is possible. But yeah, and in my case, prose is what put me on the map in terms of comics. I know it sounds weird, but I was selling Pieces of Madness, a prose book, at comic conventions and selling out. And that's when I first met editor-in-chief Travis McIntyre, who is now you know, the head of Source Point Press. And he told me to pitch him a comic book. I said, I don't think panel by panel. I will never write a comic book. And then he forced me into it. Now we have Nora. So kicking and screaming. But no, I really love it and I enjoy it. And it's just hard bouncing back and forth, I think, between, and you know this, John.
Yeah, those writing styles are very different.
Yeah, but you know, it's just like riding a bike after a while. Like, okay, I remember how to do this. You know, whether it be going back to comics or back to prose, you're like, okay, I got this. So, but anyways, yes, Pieces of Madness gained me some commercial success a few years ago as 5 short stories of the insane, cultist, and paranormal. Now you are getting 7. The 2 bonus stories with illustrations from the latest and greatest in literary art, and I'm very proud of it. Plus,
brand new cover art.
Ryan Lee cover art.
Yes,
his line work is just sick. It's awesome. And a hardcover edition, which we only printed 500 of them, so we are individually numbering them as well. It's more of like a gore piece, I would say. You know, Clive Barker meets Twilight Zone. What's that?
Splatterpunk?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love
yes.
Splatterpunk.
Yes, definitely of the same vein. Yeah, I'm very proud of the piece. In terms of Nora, Nora is more hard sci-fi, but with horror elements.
Tell us a little bit about Nora.
If you're into the X-Files, you'd really dig it. Nora C's Helm is a coma fisher for hire. So she has the ability to delve into your mind's eye, retrieve you from, or help you cross over during a coma. But she obtained that ability while working in pathogenic development for the CIA, creating hellish viruses for means of biological warfare. And in each issue, which is going to be 4 in Volume 1, you will get a window into that dark past, and you'll start to piece together how and why she's doing what she's doing now for a living, which of course is coma fishing. But it's all hand-painted by Sean Seal, who's a fine artist gone trade. So speaking of, you know, prose and comics meeting, now we're merging the fine arts and comics. So this is a beautiful marriage here. We're uniting the clans, as it were. So.
Seeing as this is your first comic book, is comic book something that you never desired to do before, something that you never thought about? Were you ever a fan of comic books before?
Yes.
Started working on this book?
Yes. Black science is my joint. Hard sci-fi.
Dude, Rick Remender, man.
Yes, or anything from Vertigo. The Punisher, when I was coming up. But no, I said I will never write a comic book. I don't think panel by panel. However, back when I was writing snarky blogs as Cosmic Casey, which you can still find me on CosmicCasey.com, both in case, I said I would never write fiction. And Tony Maiello of Rocketing Studios had approached me about writing a horror collection, and I said, that's just not what I do.
So, given that you've done, that you're doing comic book work, you're doing prose work, and that Source Point Press also does film work, is that something that maybe you're thinking of wanting to look into also?
I can't say too much, but the same film slate that was passed off to Shoreline Entertainment, Nora is a part of that 13 title film slate.
So it could be in the cards.
It could be in the cards. We'll see. But anything's possible. Now I have to say that. But you know what I should say? I'll never write a movie. I'll never write a film. That's what I should start saying. And then give it a couple years.
I never want to have
Yes. Exactly. I never want to win the lottery. Go buy me a ticket.
So what is there any thing that you're planning down the line that you can tell us about now, or let's know a little bit now, whether it's comic book or
yes,
prose?
Absolutely. Got some graphic novels in the works. I'm working with El Arto Press. John Megacon, who's an illustrator, he had approached me about his brainchild of 20 years and wanted me to give it an origin story. It's called Mexica. And it's Mexican history meets Conan the Barbarian. So it's a savage sci-fi, and that should be coming out this summer of 2017. Again, that's through El Arto Press, and it is called Mexica. And there was a lot of pressure there because for 4 months, dedicated that whole time to studying Mexican or Aztec history. And so I'm studying and representing a culture that is not my own. So, I had to walk a fine line, but the great thing about it was that Mexican history is 50% myth, 50% fact, but on the facts, you got to be like dead on. So, definitely walking a balancing act, but we're very proud of this piece. And I'm working on something with Bob Sally. He, of course, writes our comic book series Salvagers, sort of a Punisher meets Falling Down, an anti-hero piece called Hello, My Name is John. I keep putting rounds in the chamber. So
do you ever there's a lot of up and coming talent and people that start out as fans. Do you ever see yourself at a point that if it came to you would work for like Marvel or DC or Boom or IDW, another?
I will never work for Marvel or DC. Wink, wink. No. Of course I would. Anybody would. Of course. Yeah. And that would only, be great for Source Point as well. You know what I mean? We all help each other out. Together we rise.
Nice. I like that attitude. All right, Josh. So I want to talk about a little bit about the film division of Source Point Press and the stuff you guys have been doing in film. Tell me and the audience how it came about. The first film, which is based on your comic Rotten Tail.
Yes.
The comic book Rotten Tail is put out by Source Point.
So Rotten Tail is the perfect translation to a movie because it is at its heart when you read it. It's a B movie splatter tire monster flick essentially. So it's got a lot of super quippy quotable lines, some really fun scenes. It has a man who is a research facility. He's a scientist working at a fertility research clinic, so he's working with rabbits, right? Fertility rabbits makes sense. And one of these experiments kind of goes wrong, and a rabbit gets infected with something a little more than he should have, and he ends up biting him, and he turns into this half-man, half-rabbit, and completely loses his mind and goes back to his hometown on Easter weekend and goes on a killing spree. So it's hysterical and gory and awesome.
It reminds me of you ever seen the movie like Stuff?
Yes, right, yes. And so what's perfect about this is it was written by David C. Hayes, and David C. Hayes is he has written movies, like tons of movies, and he's produced and directed and starred in tons of movies, so he has all this big film background. So it translated really, really easily for him to write a film script as well. And from there, we teamed up with Shoreline Entertainment to come together between Shoreline Entertainment and Source Point Press, started pitching, going out pitching an entire slate of our properties. And Rotten Tail was always first in line. It was like, you know what, this has got to happen. We just need to kick it off with this. And so a big portion of the budget went to making sure that the practical effects are awesome. So we got Todd Tucker on board to do all the makeup for the Rotten Tail Rabbit. And Todd Tucker, he won an award for doing Brad Pitt's makeup in Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Oh, wow.
For all the aging. So anything that like wasn't to the extreme that they had to use CGI was all practical effects that he did, and it was just phenomenal, amazing stuff. He worked on Pirates of the Caribbean, Watchmen. So definitely he's got some big claims to fame. He brought his entire team in, and they just killed it. He looks amazing in the movie. Corin Nemec, he plays the star. He's the lead role, so he plays Rotten Tail. And for those who don't know him, he got famous when he was very young, doing a show called Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Man.
He was Parker Lewis, yeah.
He's on all the time.
Yep, he's the man. And then from there, he went on to do a ton of stuff. He was in The Stand, and he's been in a ton of like just great cult TV series like Stargate, SG-1, Supernatural, Smallville. All these shows that have hardcore fans at Comic Cons. So here's a guy who's never worked in comics, but like you see him signing at a con, and comic fans love him. So he was a perfect choice to be in a comic book movie with us, and he did a just absolutely incredible job. And he's a huge supporter of the film. He's been promoting it like crazy, and so it's in post right now, and we're looking at an Easter release for next year. You know, nice holiday film for the family. You know, just never think the same way of the Easter Bunny again. And everything, we kind of like got out there, we took a risk, and we proved our chops in trying to do this ourselves and produce this ourselves. And it attracted some attention. So like we've got some good things happening and distribution offers and people interested in the next thing, you know. So that's it's rolling. It's rolling. There's a lot more coming. I'm pretty excited.
Tell us a little bit about this slate that you've mentioned a few times.
The idea of working with investors, they can invest in one film, or they can invest in a bunch of films all at one time. And the idea being that basically, if you invest in one film and it fails, it's you fail. But if you invest in 8 films and 2 of them are big successes, it makes up for everything. So like you have a lower risk but bigger buy-in kind of thing. So during that slate, we've basically been looking for our properties that translate best to film. And we have some really, really great creator-owned properties that are just absolutely incredible that would make amazing movies. And so we've been working on getting an entire slate funded. But in the meantime, we are going to keep moving movie by ourselves and just keep it going. So like nothing's going to stop us at this point, which is nice.
Tell us, if you can, what's coming down the line for Source Point Press when it comes to graphic novels and prose work.
Sure. So the Boxmasters is about to come out in August, and we just did a short run. That is a Billy Bob Thornton comic, actually. Billy Bob Thornton has a band called the Boxmasters, and this is a crazy sci-fi time travel story about his rockabilly band. So it's really interesting mashup. Yeah, it's very cool.
Put rockabilly and time travel, and I'm like, I'm there.
Yeah, and it's got a little bit of star power behind it, so that's kind of cool. So we're doing a lot of cool things with that, and not only are we, going to be publishing this graphic novel, but we're looking into doing some kind of cool, like multimedia marketing for it, involving music and involving Billy Bob himself, and so that's really fun to have like so many cool things happening just in one title. And as far as in that same vein, I'm currently illustrating a graphic novel called The Creep Show and Necrogeddon. And The Creep Show is a Toronto-based psychobilly band that focuses on like horror lyrics. So it's really fun. I like to describe it as Evil Dead 2 if Mel Brooks had directed it.
That's a great description.
Tons of ridiculous humor, over-the-top gore and insanity, and just crazy things happening. Essentially, the band is lost on tour in Europe, and they've got this massive map over the windshield. They get lost and accidentally drive headfirst into a crowd of a druid cult that comes together every so many hundreds of years to halt the apocalypse from happening, an apocalypse that would be an uprising of all these monsters. They have to do this incantation and stop it. They accidentally kill the druid leader who was supposed to do the incantation, and now are responsible for all these monsters rising up, and so they have to take it upon themselves to make it right. So they're battling werewolves, and there's like a Dracula-type vampire character, and there's like mummies and zombies, and it's insane and a lot of fun. So a lot of cool things happening with music. In fact, one more music-related one, Twisted. We were working with the band Twisted, and we are about to go into print on a graphic novel called Haunted Highons, and Twisted's going to be doing a special signing with us at New York City Comic Con this year.
Nice.
So a lot of cool licensed music relationships happening. So that's like a big focus on graphic novels, mini-series, not a whole lot of like ongoing, individual issue type stuff, and building relationships, doing cool new things, and seeing where it takes us. So.
Cool. All right, so to wrap this up, tell the audience where they can follow Source Point Press on social media.
Absolutely. So there's always a website, sourcepointpress.com, which has a web store right there, and we have free webcomics you can read too. Twitter is Source PT Press, because Source Point Press is just too many letters. And then Instagram, all one word, Source Point Press. Facebook, you can find us at Source Point Press also. And we are constantly putting up all sorts of new stuff and cool free things you can read and check out, and all the new titles. And we do trailers, like really badass trailers for our comics, so you can watch videos on our YouTube channel as well. So yeah, lots of good things to find.
Cool. Casey, you want to tell the audience where they can follow you on social media?
Yes, CosmicCasey.com, both with K's. You can find me on Twitter at CosmicCasey. Facebook is Facebook.com/CosmicCasey. And Instagram is KCD Writes, not as in women's lib, but as in physical writing.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.